After serving in the U.S. Navy during World War II and graduating from college, Judd Ashmore joined the U.S. Air Force as a meteorologist during the Korean War, retiring as a lieutenant colonel in 1968. After taking it easy for all of 2 days, Ashmore signed on as a member of the KSAT television news team. Shortly after that, he began broadcasting weather reports on KITE-AM. He says that it was a dream come true to be on the radio. TV was nice, but it didn't compare. In 1970, Ashmore moved to Indianapolis, where he worked in television and radio before heading to San Francisco. By 1972, he was ready to return to Texas and San Antonio, where he was named chief meteorologist at KENS Television. A couple of years later, Ashmore took an additional job, joining the morning show at KBUC-AM, where he was partnered with Ricky Ware. Judd says the two of them had the market cornered on BS and romance. After several years of doing double duty on television and radio, Ashmore knew that he had to make a choice: radio or television. In point of fact, it was no contest. Judd says that radio is more fun and more profitable, so he departed KENS and stayed at KBUC until the station was sold in 1986. Ashmore quickly found a new radio home at WOAI-AM, broadcasting weather news reports until 2002. After a couple of years off the air, he was back behind the mic at KRNH-FM in Kerrville, where he stayed until he really retired in 2012. Reflecting on his lengthy radio career, Judd observes, "They say you have not been in radio until you have been fired and divorced. I have been in radio." Please welcome Judd Ashmore, who recently celebrated his 100th birthday, to the Texas Radio Hall of Fame.
I'll be right here when you're done. See you in about 3 or 4 minutes.
Back in April the 11th, 1929, I was 5 years old. That afternoon, my father came home with a radio. It took 2 men to carry it in the house. It was in a mahogany frame, encased. If I'd get on my tiptoes, my eyes would come up to the tuning dial. The radio was fascinating, but when they got power to it, and we only had electricity about 5 days before, when we got power to the radio, it frightened me, actually. I could hear voices. I could hear music. I couldn't see anybody. I was intimidated by the damn thing. I just didn't understand it. But as time went by, I got more and more familiar with it. Matter of fact, in just a few more days, it was not only my friend, but a member of the family. And I happen to have it with me today. This is my radio today. It's a little smaller than the original one, but it's still a lot more powerful. I went into school and finished high school and got my draft notice in my senior year in high school. It was deferred until I became a graduate of this high school. I graduated on Friday night. 3 months later, I'm on a Navy infantry landing craft in the Marshall Islands, about midway between Hawaii and Tokyo. Island names I couldn't even pronounce. I spent my tour in the military, and I enjoyed wearing the uniform. I liked the discipline. So I decided to follow the crowd to college, which I did, and then I went ahead and joined the newly formed Air Force. The Air Force I was barely 2 years old at that time after breaking off from the Army. And this was a wonderful time to be in the military. New things were happening every day. Every day was a big adventure. I had parachute duty, I had sea diving duty, I did a lot of different things, and every one was a delight. Whenever I finally got my 20 years active military duty, I decided I would, first of all, the military sent me to the University of Utah to the School of Meteorology, so I obviously was a pretty good weather forecaster. I used to at times, I'd mention what a good forecaster I was. I would say 97% right 3% of the time. And believe it or not, I'd get letters of congratulations from the audience. But in the broadcasting business, you really have to know your audience, and they have to know you. In television, I had 4 minutes a day, twice a day, to let them know who I was. I almost never got to speak or see anybody who was watching. On radio, I had 3 hours a day, every day of the week, to let them know who I was. I had a telephone which would accept 6 phone calls in turn, which I could answer and visit with the people I'd been talking to. So radio was a more fascinating thing, and against all the advice from family and everybody else, I said, the hell with the TV, I'll stay with radio, which I did, and I loved every minute of it. I cannot find words to express my appreciation for being accepted into this Hall of Fame. I, as a talk show host, made hundreds of friends, at the same time making hundreds of enemies. I used to try to maintain a firm middle-of-the-road policy, but it didn't always work, but I did my best. So anyway, I appreciate this honor, and I got to say one thing. My wife stood by me 100% all this time. She kept me on an even keel, and I must share this award with her. Peggy, stand up, Peggy. She was my rock. She was my rock. Incidentally, I've got one other thing. If many of you out there, or some of you out there, have the goal to reach 100, it's not difficult at all, it's quite easy. Every morning you take that handful of pills the doctors gave you. Then there's one other thing you have to do. All you have to do is just don't die. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Here we are. You'll take my hand, and we'll take the guardrail. We'll walk down the aisle.
Didn't plan to get into radio. However, in 1969, when a flu bug decimated the air staff at KBZB-AM, the program director